Welcome back, dear grade 10 students, and in this video we are going to know new ideas concerning trigonometric lines along the trigonometric circle and their signs. And here we go with the first idea. As you see, here is a trigonometric circle. As I told you that it is usually divided into 4 quadrants. This is called quadrant 1, that's bounded between 0 and pi over 2. It goes from 0 to pi over 2. This is called the quadrant 2, quadrant 3, and this is quadrant 4. Any angle in quadrant 1, okay, is called an acute angle. It's actually between 0 and pi over 2. So as we know that the cosine of any angle in quadrant 1, or the cosine of any angle in general, is represented along the x-axis, the axis of abscissas, as well as the sine of any angle is represented along the axis of ordinates, the y-axis. The axis of abscissas goes from the cosine along the axis of abscissas goes from -1 to 1, and the ordinate or the sine on the axis of ordinates goes from -1 to 1 also. Now in quadrant 1, note that cosine alpha is going that way, is going in the positive direction of the orthonormal system, as well as sine alpha is going upwards. So cosine alpha goes to the right and sine alpha goes upwards, then both are positive in quadrant 1. So to sum up, in quadrant 1, where alpha belongs to 0, pi over 2 interval, both cosine alpha and sine alpha are positive. So as a result, their tangent alpha, because it is the quotient of or the result of the division of sine by cosine, would be positive. Now in quadrant 2, as you see here, notice that sine alpha is still going upwards while cosine alpha is going to the left, which means cosine alpha is going in the negative direction and sine alpha is going in the positive direction. And that's to say that in quadrant 2, where alpha belongs to the interval bounded between pi over 2 and pi, we call it an obtuse angle here, sine alpha is positive, as you see it's going upwards, and cosine alpha is negative. So as a result, tangent alpha will be the result of dividing a positive by a negative, then it will be a negative. Note by that cotangent alpha always takes the sign of tangent alpha because it's just the reciprocal of the tangent. And don't forget, we always move in the positive sense, in the anti-clockwise direction, which is the positive sense. Now let's talk about quadrant 3. Note that in quadrant 3, sine alpha is going downwards, so it is going in the negative direction, and cosine alpha is also going to the left, so in the negative direction. So when an alpha belongs to quadrant 3, which is in the interval pi 3 pi over 2, both sine and cosine are negative. So tangent alpha will be positive because tangent alpha is the result of dividing a negative by a negative here, which will be positive, as well as cotangent alpha. And finally here is quadrant 4, where cosine alpha goes to the right, then it is positive, and sine alpha goes downwards, then it is negative. So whenever an angle alpha belongs to quadrant 4, between 3 pi over 2 and 2 pi, between 270 and 360, then sine alpha is negative, cosine alpha is positive. So as a result, tangent alpha is dividing a negative by a positive, then it will be negative. And again, keep on mind that we are moving in the positive anti-clockwise direction. Here is to sum up. Here is the trigonometric circle divided into quadrant 1, 2, 3, and 4. And here is the representation of cosine alpha along the x-axis and the sine alpha along the y-axis. Here is a very important sentence that you have to keep in mind. It is, all students take chemistry. What do that sentence have to do with the trigonometric circle. Let's see. All means sine, cosine, and tangent are positive. So starting from this point and moving in the positive sense, in quadrant 1, all, this refers to quadrant 1. All means sine, cosine, and tangent in quadrant 1 are positives. Students, the second word refers to the second quadrant. So in the second quadrant, students, I care about the letter S. Only sine is positive. So S goes to sine. Only sine is positive, then cosine and tangent is negative. Take. So the third word refers to the third quadrant, and T goes for tangent. Only tangent is positive in quadrant 3. Sine and cosine are negative, and tangent is only positive. Chemistry. In quadrant 4, the fourth word goes to quadrant 4, and C goes for cosine. So cosine in quadrant 4 is only positive, and the others are negative. So all are positive. Students goes to sine. Only the sine is positive here. Take, T for tangent. Only the tangent is positive here. Chemistry. C for cosine. Only the cosine is positive here. That sentence makes things easier so much. So because whenever I put A, S, T, C along this circle moving in the positive sense, I make sure of the sign of the trigonometric lines. Don't forget, the positive sense is that way and the negative sense is that way, and we usually move along the positive direction. To sum up, here are the rules. If alpha belongs to 0 pi over 2, so in quadrant 1, all trigonometric functions are positive. If alpha belongs to the interval pi over 2 pi, which means in quadrant 2, only the sign is positive. If alpha belongs to pi and the 3 pi over 2, which means the third quadrant, only tangent is positive as well as cotangent. If alpha belongs to 3 pi over 2 till 2 pi, which is the fourth quadrant, only the cosine is positive.